Why should a channel about absurd Mario Bros parodies have deep and emotional stories in it? That's the question millions of followers of the SMG4 channel asked themselves between 2018 and 2019, when the creators released the first arcs of this show. What are the SMG4 Arcs, or sagas as I often call them? These groups of back-to-back episodes which connect a story, an extended adventure with more emotion and often with drama, something completely far-fetched for the channel at the time. Imagine a show more than 7 years old that was just about Mario Bros and his friends in a retarded world having wacky, funny adventures, suddenly having a lore with dramatic, sentimental stories. This sure was part of a huge evolution, either for better or worse. While the first two arcs made in 2018 had emotional moments, in general they didn't take themselves that seriously. It wouldn't be until 2019 with the third arc where for the first time it would feature serious and tragic moments. Of course, this idea made a lot of followers angry and started abandoning the channel, arguing that these stories ruined SMG4, that a comedy series doesn't need emotional stories, and that these have nothing to do with what the channel is. And it's true, SMG4 never needed to have stories. But people grow up, you know? Perhaps 7 years of making the same bloopers of Mario and his friends in wacky, absurd adventures, as cool as it is, can get a little exhausting. Sometimes you find out that you really like rewriting stories and you imagine the characters of your shows in them. Sometimes you want to evolve your projects without changing what's in their core, and this can lead you to make risky decisions lots of your fans will probably not be happy with. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. You don't have to like the stories in SMG4, but sometimes it's okay to accept that wanting to do something different is the natural process of things. Sometimes people want to push the envelope, and that's part of growing up. It may turn out better or worse, but when it's something you're really willing to do, just go for it. The content belongs to the creator, not to the audience. They will have to respect their decisions. That's how the world works. Though of course you can always make criticisms and suggestions if you want. If you think the stories are the reason the channel has declined, that's perfect. And it is perfect that you express it. It doesn't stop being just your point of view. And how well received were the stories in general? Did they really work for the channel? Well, this depends on who you ask. I think you can imagine which groups of people accepted them more and which less. The more classic SMG4 fans tend more to say that the stories completely kill the good humorous tone of the channel and thus shouldn't exist. Only some defending the first or second arc and that's it. While modern fans who met the channel from 2020 onwards with the arcs already existing, usually support them and say that they're very emotional and are all very well written except for the lawsuit arc, which is complete garbage and should burn in hell. And then there's a third group that met SMG4 right around the time the arcs were being born, and usually have a pretty mixed opinion on them. You guessed it, the group I belong to. Even though, and this is no spoiler at all, I don't like most of these arcs, I'm not one of those who believe that the stories are detrimental to the channel. Quite the contrary, I think some of them have an impressive level of writing and comedy. But I think if there's one thing on SMG4 that in recent years declined even more than the comedy, that's the writing. And I don't think it's a thing talked about too much. I mean, most modern SMG4 haters tend to say that the stories were always a detriment to the channel and shouldn't have existed. I don't think doing emotional stories is a bad thing. The problem is that the writing in some of them, most of them, is incomprehensible to me. And not in the sense that I don't understand the scripts, in the sense that I can't understand how they go from making a story so well thought, powerful and with such a satisfying resolution, to making a script so poorly written, so unfair or so empty from one year to the next. As I said, this is still my point of view. That's what I do on my channel, express what I think about topics I'm interested in. And that's what I'm doing today, as always. In SMG4, as of today, there is a total of 7 arcs or sagas released between 2018 and 2022. The first was the Waluigi arc, which came from a Nintendo meme about Waluigi not being accepted in Smash Bros and feeling depressed about it. The story is much deeper than it sounds. Shortly after would come out the Rapper Bob arc, the shortest and arguably most harmless of all, portraying what greed can lead a person to do. Both this and the previous one would come out in 2018. The following year they would release the Anime arc, which starts out calmer, telling two different stories slightly connected, but suddenly the two subplots unify and things get much darker. The YouTube arc would come out in 2020, and in this one we see in depth the story of the channel's most iconic villain, SMG3. In 2021 they made the Genesis arc, in which we are told the origins of SMG4's universe and his role as the guardian of said universe. Later will come out the Revelations arc, which is just an extension of the previous one but still counts as an individual arc. And the most recent, released in 2022, is known as the Lawsuit arc, which is a humorous way for the creators to expose the unfair copyright conflict they constantly have with Nintendo, the company that created Mario, by parodying and laughing at the situation. While these are neither the first nor the last stories told in SMG4 through connected episodes, I'm only going to focus on the 7 main arcs. Their arrival undoubtedly turned the channel on its head. These arcs opened the doors of the channel for lore, emotional stories, new villains, character development, even for the death of important characters. There are arcs with a darker emotional tone and with big consequences for the characters, while others are rather calmer, with less stakes, and although they have moments when the characters are in danger, you know that in the end everything is going to be alright. Whether you like them or not, the stories are here to stay. And if something is undeniable, is that these arcs made the channel much more interesting to talk about and discuss. Some arcs are better, others are worse, it depends on each one's point of view, and I'm here to show you mine. Guys, I'm not sure if any of you do, but remember that mythical video I announced years ago and that I said you were going to like a lot? Well, that video will never exist. Because it's not going to be one video. You see, I always wanted to make a video ranking the SMG4 arcs from worst to best in my opinion, so a long time ago I started watching them all back to write the scripts. I rewatched several times each arc in order to remember details and be able to make a better analysis. But as I was writing the scripts, I realized that it is impossible for me to cover what I think about the arcs in just one video. I have so much to say about each of the arcs that if I put all in one video, it would end up being even longer than the Genesis arc. So I came up with another idea. How about I dedicate an exclusive video to each of the arcs? Why not give each arc an individual review in which I can make every point I want to make about them? I think that would be much more dynamic and fun. Plus I won't have to make you wait another century and a half to hear what I have to say about all the arcs together. But what I wanted was to order the arcs from worst to best, so I decided that instead of doing the reviews in chronological order, I'm going to do them in order from the arc I like the least to the one I like the most to keep the ranking format, which is what I originally wanted to do, and to add way more suspense. That is, I will dedicate a video to each SMG4 arc, starting out with the one I would rank last place, followed by the penultimate, and so on until we get to the one I consider to be the best of all. Do you like the idea? It would be the SMG4 Arcs ranking arc. Don't tell me that doesn't sound cool. And that's not all. There's an even better thing we're going to do, but we're going to leave that for later. First, let's explain the rules and the criteria I'm going to use to talk about the arcs. So first of all, what am I going to consider an arc per se? It is important to define this because many people watch the arcs through the very long videos made by fans in which they paste all the episodes of an arc in one video, which is simply stealing content, as well as there are people who include any episode that is related to an arc as part of it, even if it's not part officially. Let everyone have their own criteria of what they consider an arc. In my case, in order to be as objective as possible, I consider an arc to be the episodes that are in the official playlists of the channel. There is a section on the main page of SMG4 that has all the playlists. If there is an episode that has to do with the arc but is not in the official SMG4 playlist, for me it doesn't count as part of the arc and I don't need to watch it. There has to be a reason why the creators decided not to count it as part of the arc, so I will only take into account the episodes that belong to the official playlist. Simple. Oh, I don't know if this needs saying, but many people usually divide the anime arc in part 1 and part 2, which I understand to some extent since there is a very abrupt turn in the tone and plot. However, as I said, I'm respecting the order of the official playlists, and it seems unfair to separate the episodes when, after all, they belong to the same story, so it's only one arc, that's not a debate for me, okay? And I'm warning you, if you already wrote a comment asking about Puzzlevision, you have 10 seconds to delete it before I do it. First, I've already said several times on this channel that I'm not watching the new video since 2023 with some exceptions, and I'm not watching this huge piece of never-ending story which I haven't heard precisely good things about. And second, it's not an arc. Perhaps it's correct to call it a saga, but it's obviously not like the SMG4 arcs. It is extremely long to be one. It's not called arc anywhere official that I know. There's an official Puzzlevision playlist which, apart from not saying arc, currently only has 8 episodes for some reason when I think there are over 30. Luke himself said at the end of It's Gotta Be Perfect that it wasn't going to be an arc. It's not an arc. I see a comment asking me what I think about Puzzlevision and why it's not in the ranking, and I ban it from the channel. Is that clear? Okay, no, but seriously, you don't need to ask that. And if any new arc comes out while I'm editing this, I'm obviously not going to include it. The other rule I want to talk about has to do with past and future events and which ones I consider may affect the stories. To not make it so confusing, under my personal criteria, I'm going to consider that only past events can condition my opinion about a story, either for better or worse. What happens in the future, no matter if I already know it, is not going to affect in any way what happens in an arc. For example, what happens in Revelations may be conditioned by what happened in Genesis, who is its predecessor. This may influence my opinion about Revelations, but not the other way around. Nothing that happens in Genesis can be affected by what is going to happen in Revelations, since at the time the first one came out, I could not have said the same. I don't know, if in Revelations there is a twist that affects an emotional moment of the previous arc, that neither takes nor adds points to its predecessor. Is it clear then? If something happened before and in a later arc has some effect, it is taken into account. On the other hand, if there is something that changes my point of view because I already know what is going to happen in the next arc because I've already seen it, that does not influence my opinion in any way. Lastly, I also think this is kinda obvious, but while most of what I'm going to consider about the arcs is the story, other aspects are also taken into account. The humor, the technical aspect, the action, sometimes the context. While the most important thing is obviously the writing, all these things can also add or take points perfectly well. I think those are all the ground rules. Now comes the coolest part of all this. You are going to participate of this project. Yes, you who are watching this video are going to be able to participate in this ranking in two ways. The first one, remember the prompts I make in my videos in order to give shoutouts to the users who answer them correctly in the following video? Remember those prompts? Which, by the way, shoutouts to Bruno1923, Gabo64, Nutsi Gamer, Seul, Darius Roman, and Neil for guessing which was the SMG4 episode where they started using the Super Mario 286 font, the one you see on screen, as the default font for the dialogues. The correct answer is War of the Fat Italians 2015. Huge shoutouts to these 6 users. Well, the videos of this ranking are going to have the same prompt for you. You are going to have to guess in each review which arc is going to be in the next position. For example, in this video you're going to try to guess which is the first arc I'm going to talk about, that is the one I consider to be the worst of all. And if you guessed, when that video comes out I'm going to give you a shoutout in it. At the end of that video I'm going to say guess in the comments which arc is going to be in the next place, and if you guessed I'm going to give you a shoutout when I talk about that arc, and so on and so forth until we get to the end. So if you'd like me to mention you in my next video, join this little betting system for free. Don't go to random websites and bet real money. I'm watching you. The only thing you have to do is go to the pinned comment below where it tells you to say what you think the next arc will be and reply to that comment. Be careful with this, you have to reply to my pinned comment, the first one that will appear. Write your answer there. If you write it in an individual comment, I won't take it, just to keep it all organized. Answer in that comment which SMG4 arc you think is the one I consider to be the worst, and the ones who guess will receive shoutouts in the next video. This will be the format of this series, if you will, of the ranking of the SMG4 arcs. The SMG4 arcs ranking arc. Oh, by the way, you can only try to guess once per video and you can only bet on one arc. If anyone writes something like, I think it might be the YouTube arc or the anime arc, either of those two, XD, that comment won't be taken into account, only one arc. And I'll say it again in case it wasn't clear. If you want me to give you a shoutout in the next video, you leave your guess replying to my pinned comment, only there. If you try to guess in a separate comment, I'm gonna assume that you don't want me to give you a shoutout. Well, that's fair too. If you wanna try to guess but for some reason don't want me to mention you, you can leave a separate comment, that's a possibility too. And the second way you can participate, and for me the most important, is of course commenting your opinion about each arc in their respective reviews. You know that in this channel we always respect different opinions, and one of the things that I and this community like the most is to read other people's thoughts. So do not hesitate, feel free to comment what you think, always with respect of course. Help make the discussion more diverse by sharing your point of view in each video. I'll be reading them all. I can't wait to start this project, I wanna release their first review now. I already have all the scripts written of all the arcs, so the only thing left to do is to record and edit, but you know how I am, so I'm going to be releasing them as I can, from worst to best. If you want me to give you shoutouts in my next video, please write in the comments section which of the 7 arcs you think I consider to be the worst, which is the one we're going to start with. Remember that you have to reply to the pinned comment if you want to be mentioned. And if you want, you can also comment your own ranking. Don't leave me alone, I'd like to know how you would rank the SMG4 arcs. The idea of all this is not only to hear what I think, it's also to know as many opinions as possible. So please leave your own ranking in the comments. With all that said, let's begin the SMG4 arcs ranking arc. Good night and see you in the next Villa Nostalgia video, which is unfortunately not going to be too positive.